Welcome back, beautiful family, to Shine In and Out, the space where science meets soul and where we explore the inner work that transforms our outer world. I'm your host, Sammy Stoltz, and today we're joined by the wonderful Hannah Koch, a writer, creative, and truth seeker whose journey embodies courage, authenticity, and the power of self-expression. Hannah is passionate about turning lived experience into wisdom, guiding others to embrace their wholeness, and shining a light on the beauty of being human. Her story is one of resilience and creativity, of moving through challenges with grace and finding ways to translate pain into purpose. And research shows that expressive writing and authentic storytelling actually strengthen emotional resilience. They also reduce stress and even improve immune function. In other words, sharing our truth doesn't just set us free. It can literally heal the body. So today we'll talk about creativity, healing, self-discovery, and how to live in a way that honors both your humanity and your soul. This conversation is going to be nourishing, inspiring, and full of light. So let's dive in. All right, Hannah, welcome. I'd love to start with your story. What brought you to the work of helping people heal through the mind-body connection?
Well, that was a bit of fate, actually. Although I've always had an interest in healing and getting healthy through the mind and body spirit connection, I wanted to know more about life. And then I was moved from the Netherlands to a little village in Lesotho. Now, Lesotho, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but if you look at a map of South Africa, you'll see a little pimple in the middle of the country of South Africa, and that is Lesotho. It's an independent little mountain kingdom.
Wow.
And I was living there. I'd moved from the Netherlands there for 6 months, ended up staying 12 years. And while I was there, once I got a message in the post saying, this lady said, "My name is Carla Hannaford. I was given your details by somebody else we met in the States, and she wants to come and visit us." And we said, sure. It was so remote. Any visitor was welcome. And she then started teaching me this brain gym or educational kinesiology. And I really liked it because both my husband and I had been interested in how can you change human behavior. It's always so difficult, but this gave a tool to do that because you can have a goal and then find out what's blocking you. So that's where it actually already started. So that was the early 90s. So that's a long time ago. And from there, I did other courses as well. But it always was about healing the body, or actually getting the body to heal itself through releasing unresolved emotional issues. Yeah. So that's where it started.
Wow. And in working in this wellness field for over 30 years now, I believe, what patterns have you seen over and over again with this unresolved emotional pain and its physical symptoms?
Well, first of all, people are not aware of that they are linked. Most of us are made to believe that if you have a physical problem, all you need to do is take a pill or maybe change a diet or a lifestyle change. And they don't look in the inside, and they don't realize that their soul is actually screaming at them saying, look, there's something I want you to deal with. And then it's like having a cat and you cut the vocal cords, then it has to now claw you. And if you cut the nails, now it has to bite you, and you wonder why you keep on getting problems and they even get worse. But that's because we never listened in the first place, because we just wanted to get rid of the symptoms. So that's one of the patterns. And then I also found that holding grudges, that's the worst, one of the worst anyway, because that is those emotions like bitterness and anger and hatred, they're so poisonous to the body.
Oh.
And again, we think, and I know I used to be like that, we think that our emotions are private. It's like, it doesn't matter what I think inside. As long as I don't verbalize it or act on it, I can have whatever fantasy I want to have. But, In the Bible, it says, not to be a Bible puncher here, but there's a lot of wisdom there. As a man thinketh, so he shall be. As we think, having the thought is already enough. And we forget that when we think thoughts, we have, for women, about 28 trillion listeners. Those are our cells. They listen to everything we think. They respond to everything we think. And if we have a stress hormone, stressful thoughts, you'll have these neuropeptides floating through the body. They now hook on the membrane of a cell and will trigger a stress response in the cell, which of course is completely different if it is a happy and a relaxed response. If you have a different emotion, it will have a different response. And so we shorten the lifespan of our cells. We have that the body, well, you know how your mind is milling around over things that trouble you, and it's amazing. It just keeps coming back and back again. You keep thinking about that one thing that person said or something that happened, and no matter how hard you try to get rid of it, it just keeps coming back. So it takes a lot of mental space, which takes energy. And the body needs a lot of energy also to repair, restore, and rejuvenate itself. And that will now go down because you're taking so much energy with the thing that is bothering you. And then the body starts to, it cannot do the work to maintain itself. And then you fall behind and will get sick. So these are just some of the ways how holding grudges and these limiting beliefs and emotions can pull us down and eventually lead to illness.
It's incredible. And thank you for explaining the science. That's what we love here. So,
well, that's one of the things, sorry to interrupt you there, but that's why I like to bring the science in, because I like speaking about forgiveness, but people immediately think, oh, that's a religious thing, not important. But if you understand the science behind it, then you start realizing, okay, maybe there's something in it.
Exactly. So you say our biography becomes our biology. And there, I don't think that you mean that we're doomed to our life story, but rather that you have to look out for your internal dialogue and the stories you tell yourself about your life. Is that correct?
Well, what I found was when I was working with clients, they would come to me for different things, and I would take history and I would look at their family, at their history, at their life history. And then I would ask them at the symptoms, if they had any bodily complaints. And when they had, and there's this little book from Louise Hay called Heal Your Body. There's some other books as well. And then when we put those two together, they were telling the exact same story. So, for example, a person has bladder problems, and that means basically you're pissed off, and to say it not so politely. But in their life, that was exactly what was going on. They were really upset with something or somebody. And that is what I mean. Your biography becomes your biology. So if you have a lot of frustrating thoughts and upsets in your life, it starts to reflect in your body, because specific emotions will target specific organs or areas in the body.
That's crazy. What a great example, too, in the bladder. It makes you wonder where all the sayings came from, right? It's pretty intuitive at that point. You also talk about the inner genie and how it keeps granting outdated wishes. What does that mean, and how can we reprogram our subconscious in a more supportive way?
Well, as you said, the subconscious, that is the inner genie, because remember, we've got these trillions of cells listening in the body. The body is the subconscious. The body keeps score of everything from conception till now and before, because we also carry stuff that we inherited from previous generations. So now there's something very interesting. I'm sure you've heard that about 95% of your output of your actions and your words are triggered by the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is 95% of the time in charge. However, that's for the output. The input is a different story. our conscious mind can process about 40 pieces of information per second. So like 40 syllables per second. How much do you think the subconscious absorbs in that same second? The output is a ratio of about 1 close to 20. What do you think the output is?
An incredible amount. Probably unfathomable.
It is, if we look at it, it's 11 million pieces of information. Now, it's just numbers, it doesn't mean much. But 11 million, if we say that, so that is a ratio of 1 to 275,000. Okay, but the words don't mean much. So let's imagine that one piece of information is a word. Then 275,000 words make up about 1,000-page book. Okay, and you know how much we become conscious of that 1,000-page book? One word. One word. So here we think we know exactly what is happening with our life, and that's the facts, but we forgot that we only got one word out of 1,000 pages, which is like 3 to 5 novels. We only got one word, so maybe what we're seeing out there is not that accurate. Now that genie, that subconscious, has to filter that information down from that 1,000 pages to one word. How does it do it? It depends on what our beliefs are, because it will only give us things that are in line with our beliefs. It also depends on what are we focusing on. You know how it goes. If you're looking for a red Toyota, all of a sudden you see them everywhere. But if you're looking for this white Toyota, now you see the white ones, or whatever car. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
It's like our RAS, that reticular activating system that we have in the brain. It will filter that out. Now, when you change your focus and when you change your beliefs, you all of a sudden get a whole different word given to you every second.
That's so profound. I appreciate the way that you laid it out too, because I'm very familiar with what we see isn't necessarily what is, especially with our own perception and our belief systems attached to it. Putting it into, we're only getting one word from all of that knowledge that's out there. It shows you how limited our perception is and how much it can be shifted.
Yeah. So this is why it's so important to change our beliefs, because that is how we can now start getting the genie to start showing us different words. And that's why I created this iThrive app, which are audio recordings that you can play softly in the background while you sleep or go about your day. And then they release a lot of that rubbish that is in there to create some mental hygiene, release the rubbish and put the more desirable thought patterns in there and emotions in there. And then you start seeing different things, because your genie will start giving you different information. And in my gift that I have for the end, I have something along those lines. They can get some of those recordings.
Okay, wonderful. So as far as the recordings go, I know a lot of people talk about affirmations. I personally have worked with them and seen a difference. What is the science behind just listening is enough?
Well, great question. Great question. Have you noticed when you say affirmations, then if you don't believe that affirmation, if you say, I'm healthy and wealthy and whatever it is that you're saying, or I'm healthy, sorry, I'm wealthy. And then this back chat goes like, have you lately looked at your bank account? It doesn't look so healthy to me. You're talking a load of rubbish. And so when you say these affirmations and you don't believe them, you're actually affirming to yourself that you don't have what you want, and you feel worse than you started, and you end up worse off than you were if you were not saying those things. When you listen to them subliminally, softly in the background, then it bypasses that little voice, the true false indicator. And then it's like, oh, okay. It just goes straight into the subconscious. Now, with affirmations, the only problem is where does the rubbish go that you've been telling yourself for your whole life? Yes, you can put in there that you're wealthy or healthy for whatever it is that you're telling yourself. But if you also have if you have the belief like, I don't deserve it, it's impossible for me to get it, it's also not going to work. That's why with my thrives that I have, I do a lot of releasing in there to let go of those things so that you don't have that conflict.
The letting go is probably the hardest part for everybody. So to have a guide like that is amazing, wonderful. No wonder you've helped so many people. I'm going to have to check that out.
Well, that's easy enough. If you want to go and check it out, you can just go to hannahcock.com and you'll get something specifically also for hormones, because that's one of the areas that I specialize in, hormones and forgiveness.
That's
as
what
they
I
go
saw.
hand in hand.
I did see the.
Yeah.
So can you explain that, how unprocessed emotions like self-directed guilt especially can lead to those hormonal or nervous system dysregulations?
Yes. So have you heard of meridians?
Mhm.
Right. So I don't know if your listeners have heard of meridians, but those are the energy pathways that your life force runs through your body, and the acupuncturists stick needles in to stimulate the flow of those of those meridians. Now, the interesting thing is that certain thought patterns will affect specific meridians. So we've got 14 major meridians. 12 of them are linked to organs. And for example, the kidney meridian, if you're very fearful, it will contract or inhibit the flow of the kidney meridian. And then when you let go of that fear, it will open it up again. Now, we also have a circulation sac meridian, which is linked to the heart sac or the pericardium. And that, of course, affects the whole hormonal system. And the thought pattern that goes with that is when you hold grudges, that is the meridian that will get constricted. And when you do the forgiveness work, then it opens everything up again, and that you forgive all those who have wronged you, and that you take responsibility for your own well-being. So, yeah, that's why the grudges will affect the hormones, because the meridian flow is inhibited.
I've seen examples in my own life of people that alienate their own siblings over a small grudge, and without fail, they're the ones who have complications. They get cancer, they die earlier, they have issues, and it breaks my heart, because of course it doesn't have to be that way. And when you step back a little bit and look at what the reason for the grudge was, it becomes, in the face of these health issues, so insignificant. So
Yes.
So how do you redefine this forgiveness concept, maybe away from what people think that it's about religion or about guilt, and move it toward that scientific health-based perspective? And what are some of those physical symptoms that you've seen in your clients that you've been able to resolve with that forgiveness work?
Okay, so let me first start with an example. Women, after they've given birth, a lot of us need to now cross our legs because when we sneeze, we don't want to have this little accident, right? And I had it really bad. I could not jump on a trampoline. Whenever I would go to gym, I would have to run a few times to the toilet. I would make sure I would wear dark pants so you couldn't see if I missed. Whole lot. And I tried everything. I did pelvic floor exercises. Yes, it improved, but as soon as you stop it, back to square one. And then as I was going through my training to become this medical intuitive, we worked then on resentment. And then I realized where my resentment was coming from. And it was over the weekend we had this. Monday, I went back to gym. I didn't spill a drop. Overnight, it had stopped.
Just recognizing what your resentment was.
And releasing it. That was then in the process, because when you're on a course, you practice on each other. So then the person was working with me. released it and we forgave the person and forgive myself for the whole thing. And yeah, that's how it resolved. And I've done it for clients as well.
So the release looks like that conscious, open forgiveness of all parties.
Well, say that again. I'm not fully understanding what you mean with that remark.
When you're saying that you released it or you let go of it, what does that look like?
You know, when you've really let go of something is when you think back of it and you don't go like, you can really, you're calm. There's no emotion anymore. If you're upset with somebody and you think of that person, you'll be upset. You can feel that tension in your body. And that person can be dead. I've had it with clients. The person has been dead for 10 years and still has hold on that person and holding that person back because of this unresolved issue. Because people think that if I want to ask forgiveness, I have to go to that person and ask for forgiveness. Well, first of all, forgiveness is a private affair. You never have to talk to the person you are forgiving. You never have to talk to them. So that's one. The other thing is that it does not mean that you condone their behavior. It just means I accept what happened because it happened, I can't change it. I don't accept what you did or I don't like what you did. I'm not condoning it, but I accept it happened. Other point is that forgiveness is also not like, oh, I'm so good and out of the kindness of my heart, I look down on your poor mortal person that done such horrible things and I'll forgive you out of the kindness of my heart. No, it's not like that either. But we often think it's like that. And they think it's unforgivable. However, if we start really analyzing what happened, if you can realize, hang on, first of all, if I explore what is the good that came out of this situation?
Totally.
Well, I turned direction. Or, hey, I was now free to move forward this way. Or I learned to be kind and helpful and more understanding because I realized how horrible that is. I need to change my ways. So there's gold that is found.
Always.
But also, and this is the harder part for people, is that we forget that people treat us the way we treat ourselves. Let me give you an example. I once was working with one of my children. They were doing math. We were doing maths homework. And he was going like, oh, he was struggling and he was going like, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. He didn't think anything of it. And then just to make him aware what he's doing, I said, yeah, you're so stupid, right? Not that I believe that, but I wanted to hear what he was saying. And he got so angry with me. He was so upset. I said, but that's what you were saying the last 5 minutes. Why can't I say it if you're saying it? But only because I said it could he become aware of what he was doing. Now, if you just think of a person that you're upset with, what is it that you accuse them of? It could be that they're treating me badly, they are disrespectful, they're not listening to me, they don't take me into consideration. Then the next question is to ask, well, how much am I listening to me? How often do I put myself last and I get upset if other people put me last? You see? So,
absolutely.
And the thing is that if you want to reach your goals and you put yourself last all the time, what is the chances that you're going to reach those goals? Very low or zero. So by analyzing what did I see in that person, and realize where I'm doing the same and change me, because basically what I see in the others is my mirror. I don't go and fight my reflection in the mirror. I need to change me if I don't like what I see in the mirror, right?
Yes.
So now this person that was so irritating that I wanted to stick behind the wallpaper has brought me gold. It was a beautiful message they brought me. I wanted to kill the messenger, but the message was amazing. And if I take the time to analyze what is the message and recognize the gold they gave me, forgiveness becomes a no-brainer because it's like, of course, I mean, you're just treating me like me. I'm the one that needs to forgive me. for needing you in my life to show me what I'm doing to me.
That's powerful. Actually, I've helped people. It's almost like you can feel the energy that they place toward themselves. Like, I've met some people that clearly don't believe they're worth listening to and then get angry when people aren't listening. And it's just so in their mannerisms, in their energy, in the way that they curb their own speaking. How can you expect people to respect your space and your speech if you don't even believe that it's worthy of respect? I've absolutely seen that.
Absolutely. I also say the same thing. How can you do that? You know, how can you expect people to treat you if you can't even treat yourself like that? So, totally. And that again comes back to that inner thought process. And that's why this app is so amazing, because it will release a lot of these things of being unworthy and whatever else we're saying to ourselves, and replace it with realizing, okay, I am worthy. I am good enough. Yeah, so that's very important that we change the thinking, because it's not going to change overnight. But there's a very interesting research that I saw that just demonstrates this, and the filter also amazingly. Now, I cannot think of the name right now. I would have to look in my email what it is. But
Okay.
it was a project where they said to some beautiful ladies, they said, we want you to be, doing an experiment where we're going to make a scar on your face with makeup, and you're going to go into this interview, and we want to see if you are discriminated against because of your disfigurement. And just before they walked into the interview, they said, oh, we just have to do something. It's not 100% right. But instead of patching the scar up, they removed it. So here these women are going into the interview thinking they have a scar on their face, but they don't. And then they were asked afterwards, do you feel you were discriminated against because of the scar? And they said, yes, absolutely. I could see the person just looking at my scar. I could just...
Oh,
And this is again that example of that one word they were given out of the 1,000 pages. Because they picked up the words that fitted the idea that they had a scar on their face, while they didn't. And they didn't see all the other pages, 1,000 pages minus one word.
it's so powerful. I often think about that with people that have a disfigurement, and I think to myself, how can I make them feel comfortable? How can I make them feel accepted? But the truth is, if their perception is going to be that people are judging them for that, it's going to be it anyway. If I look too long, it's a problem. If I don't look long enough, it's a problem. And it's all in their perception, never that I'm the one judging them. They create it. And it's horrible because it's a terrible way to live, always having that in the back of your mind affecting every interaction that you have. So I'm so glad you bring that to the forefront, because we could help so many people to realize that they don't have to live like that.
Yeah, and we can either say that they created, or we can say they filtered it out, because there's so many options out there, and they just chose to look at that one tiny little thing and make that their reality. And, nowadays, everybody is so like, oh, I cannot insult this person, and I have to be politically correct over there. But as you said, if we have that belief in our head, no matter what you do is wrong. Too little, too much, you can never make somebody happy. You cannot make anybody angry. Yes, we can trigger their anger, but it's an inside job. Our emotions are an inside job. And if we want to change, it also is going to have to be an inside job. Nothing else is going to work.
Totally. And that realization has helped me as well. As I used to be a perfectionist, always trying to come across the right way, and realizing that it's impossible to come across the way that you want to come across to all of these people with their own perspectives and focus. It just allows you to let go and be yourself. And that's another gift in and of itself. But I do see a lot of people have more trouble forgiving themselves than they do others. Why do you think that is?
I think it also got to do with this whole idea of feeling unworthy, and that if I'm unworthy, then I'm also unworthy of forgiveness.
Mm.
But the forgiveness is a decision, and being worthy is also a decision. The thing is that we tend to base our worth on our achievements. You know,
Mhm.
if I have achieved all of these things, then I'm worthy. But the problem is when those things fall away for whatever reason, like you lost a job or you lost your partner, whatever, does that mean you're now not worthy anymore? And most of us think, yeah, we're now not worthy anymore. But that's why now I'm going like, well, I'm worthy just because, just because. Some people say you're worthy because you're a child of God, or just because you're alive. It doesn't matter what it is, because they might not resonate with you. But that's why I'm now saying I'm worthy just because. Just, I don't have to
Yeah,
have any reason of
I like
saying
that.
that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I always see it as because you exist, you're worthy. Just by virtue of existing, you're meant to be here and you're allowed to be happy. So many people don't think that they're allowed to be happy. They don't think they deserve it. And if you look at the common thread among being a human, it's that desire to be happy and to be loved. And that's really all we do in our daily lives to endeavor to find that place where we can finally be happy. And
Mm.
it's not in the external stuff, it's in the believing that you deserve it first.
Yeah, and so that's why I listen to my own app every night. They're different subjects, so I'm giving one subject specifically for the hormones for the listeners, but there is a paid version with a wide range of subjects, including for the menopause problems and period
Hmm.
problems. People have seen a huge reduction in symptoms, up to 85%. And
Wow.
yeah, because we create so much mental garbage. You don't clean your house once, maybe once for 9 days and be done with it. It's an ongoing job because you keep getting stuff come in. The dirt comes in through the wind. People walk it in. You bring it in. You've got animals. There's so many ways. And then because for hygiene reason, you clean regularly, or you get somebody to help you do it. And this is what the app does. Mental hygiene. It cleans a lot of that rubbish. And especially, as you said, we've talked about it a lot. A lot starts with self-worth. And if we don't have self-worth, then that is one of the cornerstones of our well-being. Because if we don't feel good enough about ourselves and feel worthy enough about ourselves, then everything will be filtered out to us to prove how bad and rotten and useless we are. But as soon as you shift that, you start realizing, actually, that's not that bad. Oh, that person actually smiled at me. There's an opportunity over there. You get different words out of the 1,000 pages.
Okay. So I know you have your app and those audios. Is there anything else that is a good starting point for somebody who knows that they're holding on to emotional baggage but doesn't know how to let it go and wants to have an active part?
Well, I do offer coaching as well. I think you also do coaching, right? I
Mm-hmm.
also do. And I specifically work a lot with physical problems as well, or where there is conflict. If you are going, for example, you have a difficult relationship with somebody and you want to sort it out and your partner doesn't, I'll work
Mm.
with you and I guarantee you things will shift. He might disappear or she might disappear gracefully out of your life, but then it won't be with a fight. It will be like more harmonious, as much as a split up can be harmonious, but at least it's more manageable, or things will change, or you get really good at dealing with it. So if you have physical problems or relationship issues, conflicts, then yeah, I'm happy to work with them.
And I hope people realize how life altering the work of letting go can be. I've, been betrayed in a past relationship, and when I look back on it, all I feel is gratitude. And the power of that versus what I used to feel, that like ache in my chest, how could this happen? You know, and that almost blaming of myself because I had the intuition the whole time that it was happening, yet I didn't listen. So I was mad at myself, but instead I chose, I'm never going to do that again. This was a beautiful lesson. I'm never going to not trust myself again. And this forced me to move on. And that's exactly what I needed to do. And I wouldn't be where I am today, which I love where I am today. So it's also the reframing, right, of those events that you could easily see as negative if you followed those initial emotions.
Absolutely. And now to come back to another fallacy around forgiveness that people have is that they often think, oh, like you could have easily thought, I must stay angry and stay upset to make sure this never happens again. But when we are angry and upset, we are way more likely to attract the same partner with different clothes on. You know, we will repeat the pattern, but because you learned that is what happens if I don't listen to my intuition, now it will not happen again because you've made peace with it, you learn from it, and you move on from it with peace. And so the idea that holding a grudge is going to prevent things from happening again and is going to keep people at bay is not true. The opposite is true. You are,
Yeah.
and I mean, how many people do you know that attract the same type of partner, the same abusive person? And you know how these narcissists are all of a sudden coming everywhere out of the woodwork. Well, what if it is that you basically gotten written on your forehead, please abuse me because I abuse me?
Yeah, it's oftentimes from childhood as well, how you're
Mm.
treated, any traumas like that. So even if you're not consciously aware of a relationship where you allowed that to happen to you, maybe it happened to you when you were unable to become aware and do something about it. And then you have to forgive yourself.
Yeah, and it can even be generational. It can even be generation upon generation where there is abuse for family members. So you really, it's deeply ingrained. And then it would be very wise to get a professional like me or you or somebody else that can assist you to release even those generational patterns.
Of course, the more, and I don't know if you've delved into the science of epigenetics, but it's so incredible that there've been studies that even generations before you, your grandparents, if they had a period in their preteens where they were starving, you will have different effects in your genes and see a different form of resiliency than the people who were well fed their entire lives. And that's your grandparent. So it's multiple generations looking back. There are sometimes things that you can't even blame yourself for or your habits for. And uncovering that, I think, is a relief. Because you don't have to have a specific reason that you're pinning it to you, but you're able to now let it go.
Absolutely. And then you can forgive yourself for having held on to it, even if subconsciously for so long. You know, forgiveness is my favorite topic, definitely.
Yeah. Instead of, I can't believe I held on to that for so long when I didn't need to, and beating yourself up about it, it's thank you. I'm so glad I saw this. Now I never have to do it again. It's
And if you
lightness.
do it again, it's like, oops, I did it again. My favorite song by
Yeah.
Britney Spears. You know, it's like, because guaranteed you're going to mess up somewhere along the line and do a similar thing. And it's okay. You know, we're messy and we might as well accept it.
Totally. I also love that you explain how forgiveness is a private thing, that you never have to have that discussion. You don't actually need to look at the person that wronged you and say, I forgive you. I was able to do that because I had done the work beforehand and I truly meant it. I was grateful. The first thing I said was thank you, because now I know that my intuition was right and I can move forward and not continue to foster this relationship that I don't want to be in. So that private forgiveness, I think, will be a lot easier for people because the ego is, I don't want to forgive them. They hurt me. I don't want them to feel good. And so many people hold that grudge because they're trying to hurt the other person. It's like drinking the poison and expecting someone else to die.
Exactly. Because we forget that that person might not even be aware that you're holding that grudge and you're having aches and pains and all sorts of health issues and they just carrying on with their life. Yeah. I remember once
Unbelievable.
I went to a seminar with Carolyn Mace. I don't know, she's written also quite a few books of Why People Don't Heal and some other things. And I was at a seminar and she says, who is here that is struggling to forgive? And this woman like, yes, me, like as if she was proud of it, right?
Huh.
Because some people are actually proud that they're so angry. And then Carolyn Mays asked her, and how is your health? Do you have any aches and pains? Oh yeah, my back is sore and this is sore. And it just proved how bad that person physically was feeling because of she was holding on to all those grudges. Probably had bladder problems as well, right? Because she was so peeved off.
Yeah, that's wow, what an example. And I have seen that, people proud of the grudges that they're holding. And
Mm,
I'd love to see them reframe that, be proud that you were able to let it go if it was that powerful, right?
exactly. Absolutely. Or even if you don't want to admit that you had that for so long, then at least be proud of your own growth process and how you've been able to move forward. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And I also think that people use the negative things to connect with other people. And it's not that it doesn't work, but that maybe it's connecting you to the wrong people because you're focused on the wrong things.
I'm so glad you brought this up. And this is something that we basically were trained as children. I don't know how it was for you, but when you grow up, if you look, we all want attention from our parents, from other people, and you can measure that in a form of energy. It can be time, it can be volume of voice, and intensity of touch. Those three are obvious three things that go with attention. Now, when do you normally get more attention? When you do something naughty or bad, or when you do a good thing, right? When you do a good thing, say, ah, yeah, well done, and they carry on, and as if you don't.
Yeah.
Thank goodness she's out of our hair. She's doing good. We can carry on with our own thing.
We have to focus on the problem child.
We have to focus. Exactly. We have to focus on the problem child. And that problem child gets all the attention, it gets all, money is thrown at it. Or if a person has really done something naughty, you grab them and shake them and scream at them. That's a lot of attention they're getting there.
Yeah.
And so I was like that too. Not that I was shaken and screamed at so much, but I learned by being sick, I would get attention because I was one out of 6 children. So if I just looked in a certain way, then not necessarily from my parents, they didn't see it because there were so many others, but the school teacher, it's like, oh, you look so white. Oh, come sit here. She would like faff over me just because I had a little problem. And I really had to get rid of this habit of asking for attention by having something to complain about, and had to give myself permission that it was okay to be happy.
That is huge. And I'm sure there are so many people doing that without realizing that's why they're doing that. And if you get to the bottom of, I just need attention and I do deserve it, and it's a shame that I thought that I had to get it that way. I personally went in kind of the opposite direction and just kept trying to be perfect, and that created sickness as well. Because I was so intent on being perfect that I didn't allow myself to exist as I needed to exist, and I put so much pressure that my cells didn't like that either. So there's definitely a happy medium where even if you need to ask for the attention, because at least now you recognize that that's what you need when you have that feeling that you need to do something radical or something of that nature. It
But
can show up in
also,
so many different ways.
absolutely. And then also, how much attention are we giving to ourselves? How much are we taking time to be quiet, to do something we really enjoy? Starts there also. Give
That's so
yourself the
true.
attention. Give yourself the compliments that you want. Give to you what you want to receive. And it doesn't have to cost money. A lot, anyway. Most of the time.
That was another journey I had to go on. I was very selfless, like to a fault. It's not about me, it's about them. I'm not even going to focus on what I'm feeling right now because my friend's not feeling well. And then it became, I don't feel well enough to help my friends, so I obviously need to do some work. And in that, I've realized that you put your oxygen mask on first. You can help others so much better if you're helping yourself along the way to have the energy to do so and the health.
Absolutely. And then also is that sometimes by not being always ready to stand by somebody else, that person has to step up themselves. But when you are so quick to help them, because help, I try to avoid that word because it's like, I am so good and you're poor you're down there, let me help you and pull you up. You're not always helping them. You're not supporting them to grow. Sometimes you can stand there, give them guidance, show them what to do, but it's for them to do the work. If they don't do the lifting, nothing is going to change. They're just going to suck you dry. Like a Dementor, right, from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Who suck the living life force out of you.
Totally. And I see that so often, especially in families with addiction or alcoholism. It's you love this person, so it's so hard to stay out of it. And you're thinking, what can I do? And I know helping directly isn't good, but what can I do to help them help themselves or help realize that they need to help themselves? Do you have any advice for those people that are having trouble letting go of trying to help?
I do. Because I'm in a situation where I have a husband, he's not as well often. He's got some health issues. It's quite funny that I have people in my life with health issues, but that's how it goes. And I discovered, remember the mirror thing that I said earlier? He's now my mirror. And then I look in the books, being Louise Hay, or there's another great book called The Psychic Roots of Illnesses. And then I look in there, what is it that their illness is trying to tell them? So like my husband has Parkinson's, and I looked it up in that Germanic healing knowledge book called The Psychic Roots of Illnesses. And it said being stuck. Now, the interesting thing is, this is my second husband. My first husband was stuck and he didn't survive it. And now the second husband is also very stuck. I'm the common denominator here. I'm not saying it's my fault they are stuck, but maybe I need to look at that. How stuck am I? And that's when I realized, but I'm also feeling stuck, in different areas. And then I focus on me getting unstuck. And then I can give them advice, or as I do better, he does better, either way. But the whole thing is keep being the example. So learn from them. I like to say, a fool likes to blame others for their errors. The wise learn from their own. The genius learns from others. And that's how we enter the thriving zone. Because when you can learn from their mistakes, you don't have to go through all the pain and suffering they're going through, and you can get the growth from it. And then they don't have to be that mirror anymore. Maybe they get better. Or you have good ideas of how to get unstuck because you got unstuck.
Yeah, I'm always asking people advice or a perspective or experience because I know that if I can learn from their experience, if they got divorced, why? What do you think was the cause? Because I don't want to do the same thing. And if you already had to suffer for it, I don't want to, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's so powerful. And I really like that because those people that come to you with that negativity, it's hard, I think, to come from your own space of positivity because it feels uncomfortable. It feels like it won't be accepted. But if you're trying to lead by example, especially from a vulnerable space, showing that, yes, you may have this perception that I'm doing well in life as compared to yourself, but I'm being vulnerable and telling you that I'm having struggles too, and I'm showing you that I'm actively working through them. That might be the most powerful medicine, to be surrounded by the people that are doing the work, because it's like the top 5 people you spend your time with are the ones that affect you the most and your patterns and where you are in life. So that's the message. Be one of those 5 people to as many people as you can and be the positive influence, not the one that's
The
going to put up
draining
with the
ones.
negativity. Yeah, exactly.
Now, I just want to tell you just some interesting food for thought about those negative people, right? Because we thought like, oh, just cut them out of your life. But what if you're the negative person to start with? And remember, they're your mirror. So maybe you're negative in certain areas in your life and always seeing the dark side of life instead of the bright side of life. And so if you have people that are draining your energy, then start looking at, well, where am I similar, and change that. But there was something very interesting. So I live in South Africa, and South Africa is quite a difficult place in its own way. And people were always saying, oh, it's so bad, and there's no future for your children here. And then I thought, let me listen to what they say. And I realized it could be true. Now, I remarried, and my second husband, both of us had been widowed. So we got these 3 children between the two of us, and I am from the Netherlands, and my son had a Dutch passport, but his children did not. So we thought, you know what? What if those people that are so negative have a point? What if they have a point that there is not much of a future for them here? And that is when we realized, let me adopt his children. We adopted each other's children so that they could get a Dutch passport. This is proven now one of the best things we could have done for them, because they can travel the world. They're working overseas because of that. So when somebody is always complaining about something, listen carefully, because they could have a point. There could be something in there that could be a warning for you. So listen, look at your own negativity and get rid of that. But there is something there as well that could be a warning sign, and listen to it then prayerfully.
Absolutely. I see so many people letting those comments bother them. And it's that moment of the mirror, right? If I'm in the same room as 2 other people and the one other person is listening and I can feel them seething about what the other person is saying, and the other person is just spouting whatever, then that person that's seething really needs to look at what's triggering for them and how it relates to their inside life, because you don't have to be bothered.
The thing is, the challenge is that if a person has low self-esteem, they will never want to admit that. It's really hard, because their pride now takes a knock, because are you telling me that I'm like that piece of scum? I'm like them? Don't tell me that. And definitely don't tell them in the moment, because they will clap you. I mean, I had that also. If somebody told me that while I was upset with somebody, I would want to hit you. It takes time. You need to calm down, be in a good space to be willing to do that. And that's, again, why self-esteem is so important, why the app can assist with building that self-esteem, to let go of some of those thoughts that we have about ourselves. Yeah, because if we want to change our life, it comes from within. And that irritating person that you want to club, you want to hit them, are holding your next key to your success. Like we said earlier, if they are not listening to you, look where you're not listening to you. And when you start listening to your inner guidance, you are way more likely to reach your goals than if you keep ignoring that inner voice. And so it's worth exploring, and forgive yourself for the mistakes and for being the same. It's okay.
Absolutely.
We all have it.
I always try to frame it as, it's not that you're the same as that a-hole, it's that you're the same as every other human, because we have a collection of emotions and thoughts that are going to be common amongst us, and that's not your fault. So coming from that space, instead of, I don't want to be like them, it's, I'm like everyone, and we all have these moments, and then you can let that go.
And we must also remember, and I'm sure you're aware of that, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So if a person is, I love how you said that, spewing, what was it again? Like just spewing out these words,
Yeah.
they're probably hurting. They're hurting. And as the Course of Miracles, I don't know if you know the book. Hang on.
Yeah.
they talk about everything is either an act of love or a cry for love.
That's
If we realize that, then, we don't have to take it personally. It's just a person hurting. It's not about you. It's about them. And then it makes it easier to look at them from a distance, and we can see so clearly what is going on in the other person's life. And then if we have the courage to look at how they are our mirror, we're doing ourselves a favor, not to prove to ourselves that how bad we are, but just to realize I can learn from them. I don't have to go through that. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's all lessons everywhere if you choose to look. Make that your word, right, of the thousands.
Opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And thank goodness there are many seconds, so you do get slightly different words, but there is a lot we miss.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening and thinking, this is me, I've been doing everything and still not feeling well, it must be something emotional that I'm holding back, what would you want them to hear?
I want them to hear that it is within you to change. And the I Thrive app can be a great tool. And if they go to hannahcock.com, they can get that for free. And then you can listen to it audibly and say yes to every statement that they say, yes, I want that, or yes, I want that. Or they can listen to it subliminally. But then you have a tool to start with, because if you don't change the inside, your subconscious mind is going to keep feeding you that same word over and over again, or the same words over and over again. It's very difficult to get out of it. And if you want more, then go and get some help. No, not help. Go and get some guidance.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. So perfectly succinct and profound. I think this episode has a lot to offer, and I'm very excited to share your wisdom with everybody. I'll be putting your links everywhere so that everybody can find them, and I'll be looking into it myself. So thank you so much.
Please do. That would be great.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time and energy to make a space that takes the how out of the healing. Really. Amazing.
Well, thank you. That's a lovely way you phrased that. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Same to you. Thank you so much, and we'll hopefully meet again.
Absolutely. Would be my pleasure.
Great.
Hannah, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your truth so openly. Your words are a reminder to us that our stories matter, that vulnerability is strength, and that when we express ourselves fully, we give others permission to do the same. If you'd like to connect with Hannah, read her work, or learn more about her creative journey, you can find her in the show notes. And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this Shine In and Out community. If Hannah's story touched you, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the show. And leave a review so more people can join us in this space where science meets soul. Remember, your voice carries healing, your story carries power, and your light is meant to be seen. Until next time, keep shining.